Great. There's been a lot of discussion between all of us here several times during meetings about the poll pads for voting day. It used to go and if you book, you'd open up and you'd sign it, and they went to the electronic style of doing it. And we are looking to go back to the book, the paper, here in the city of Oak Grove. Does anybody want to say anything about this, or
No, I'm for it.
does anybody here want to talk about it? You don't have to, but you certainly can. You're for it or against it, or
Yeah, I'll ask why
come on up, Brian.
it's electronic device that you are abandoning to go back to some paper logbook.
Yeah, can you just state your name and address for the record, and then you certainly can ask us.
Brian Careyfield, 21141 Rum River Boulevard. So you're abandoning electronic means of logging in
Yes.
for paper
Yep.
because of a seat in their propaganda, or why? I mean,
I'll give you my opinion.
Well-
Everybody else can give you theirs if they want. It's nobody's business to know that I've been here and voted outside of the paper poll pad itself. That's-
zero evidence you've had that it's been misused, of course, right?
Well, like I've shared before about any of this election stuff, I can't prove there has been anything that's been done wrong, but also can't prove that there's not. So what we're trying to do here is to do a couple exercises here to build the confidence back for the community that we can trust in the elections. I'm not saying that the election was rigged. I've never said that, and I never will, because I don't have proof one way or the other. So the only way to prove whether there's integrity in the election still or not is by doing a couple of these exercises to make sure that everything's checking out right. So that's what we're trying to
So
do.
what exercises are they then?
Well, the one is to
Is
do post
books.
election review. That's counting the ballots again at the end, not the end of the day, but within the 10 days. And the other one is going back to the paper. You walk in, you sign your thing, and then you have your vote. But people during the election day, they don't need to know who's voted and who hasn't voted. They will find out because you submit those things, and that's fair. But that's what we're looking to do here. We've always been a council that, this even going back to COVID, we've always been a council that wants to make sure things are being done correctly, and we're willing to take those risks to make sure things are done right when we feel that we need to. Hopefully, at the end of the election, we're going to find out that everything checked out right, and then it was just a good exercise that we did. Plus, you have to have the books anyways if all of a sudden the machine was to go down.
What kind of reconciliation do you do when you have a discrepancy on these manual recounts? You got all that figured out? Is it?
Well, we haven't done them yet.
No, I know, but you're gonna do them, right?
What my goal is, Brian, is at the end that everything checks out right. That's my goal.
yeah.
So that I can say, hey, well, it looks like there is integrity in the
I-
election.
I respectfully disagree. So, and I think it's a gigantic waste of time. For the 3,000 votes that you got, or the 2,088 that you got, or is that what you're going to count? Down ballot stuff that these guys are claiming are subject to error?
We're going to check everything, and I'm not even going to be on a ballot this go around.
I know you're not,
You know,
but you were last time.
right?
Did you guys check them last time, or you not?
No, that's what we want to do this time.
Yeah, okay. All right, I've said enough.
All right, thank you, Brian. All right, anybody else have any comments or want to explain it differently than I did? I think it's
No, I think
pretty
you-
close to what
You're well spoken on the topic.
Yeah, you are.
okay. So this
Well,
one,
and, I will say one little thing, and just because, I've been thinking about it, to me, it's no different than I balance my checkbook, I balance my Visa card, I balance all this, and I do it on paper against the electronic. We don't have that. So all we're doing is what we do every single day in our own homes. Or businesses do, they check their register against their tally at the end of the day. That's all we're doing. So we're just adding back the step that was already there before for good reason. So,
It's been eliminated.
and that's my
Yeah.
opinion. So, and not everyone has to agree with that, but that's how I look at it, and that's why when we vote on it, my vote would be to remove them because I think we should have the paper there.
and just to
Check
add-
and balance.
Just to add to that, I had a couple people in the community reach out to me with concerns about this and wondering if this is some kind of conspiracy thing and so on and so forth. And my response is, again, I'm not trying to prove there is a problem. I'm actually trying to prove there's integrity in the election process still. But when I go out to eat, and I swipe the credit card, I look to make sure I was charged the right amount. In fact, one time I was not. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't mine. Or your kids' grades. You look online, you make sure that they've been entered correctly. So again, none of us are up here trying to come up with this creative way to get certain people elected or not. We just want to make sure that it's a fair election, and whatever the results are the results. But at least we can stand behind our polling locations and say that the job was done correctly. And I know some of the election judges are getting kind of bothered by this a little bit. I've said it probably 10 times already, and I know I can speak for everyone here, is this has nothing to do with the election judges. We have great election judges. What we're trying to do is just make sure all the checks and balances are being done correctly, and that we can come back to the voters come November and say, hey, we did everything we could. Everything checked out perfect. So we know that the election process, at least for the city of Oak Grove, is being done correctly. So that's really where we're at. It's not this conspiracy thing that some people think it is, but that's really what it's about. And somebody has to start making decisions to make sure that things are being done right. And this council, as long as I've been on it, has always been really good to do those things and not just sit back and wait for someone else to do it. So, so that's kind of that in a nutshell. Anybody else, any comments or?
No, I think you explained it.
And Lauren, I see it's resolution 24, but is there a number?
We didn't give it a number. These were what were sent to us.
Okay.
They were drafted by ACIT. So there's no number. You could have the next available number. We do have some information to share regarding the agreements that we have with Anoka County, and then the county's position on this, at least what they've shared with the city. They believe state statute governs this, and for municipal, or for elections, county and higher, the county board, or the county is the authority, the elections authority on whether paper poll books can be used or electronic poll books can be used. If the city was to have a special municipal election, they said at that point the cities could elect to use the paper poll books instead of the electronic poll books. But obviously the general election is everything, it's presidential, state, county, and city elections. So their position is that the counties has the authority over this, not the city.
So how long does that JPA last for?
Well, have they,
Well, this is separate
have they
from the
provided us with the JPA with that language in it?
So there's two agreements that are part of kind of this discussion. There's the one from 2018, which this resolution seems to address. But I believe I read that agreement to have been superseded by a 2022 JPA, which requires does not have the same termination language. So when this 2022 agreement was executed, or it was in 2021 to begin in 2022, it allows termination beginning January 1 of 2026, and not the 7-day opt-out that was in the 2018 agreement. So this resolution is, I think, trying to address an agreement that was superseded by the language in a 2022 agreement. And in that 2022 agreement, the termination language is to get out before January 1 of 2026, there has to be agreement with the county, because it was essentially an agreement to jointly purchase this equipment and then an agreement to use that equipment at certain elections. So terminating it is not as straightforward as the 2018 agreement would have been.
But there's language in the 22 agreement stating that it supersedes the 18?
The language in the 22 agreement says, the parties, this agreement supersedes all oral agreements and negotiation between the parties relating to the subject matter hereof, and hereby rescinds and replace all prior agreements with the respective governmental entities with this agreement. So I read that to say that it rescinded and replaced this 2018 agreement.
So why do they send us the old agreement? Why didn't they just state that it just goes to the original? Or, I mean, the current, they should
They
say.
didn't send us that. We pulled that from our records. Because everybody was talking about it at the last meeting, and we pulled that from our records. I think they sent the city of maybe they sent the city of Ramsey their copy.
Oh, you wanna come up here, sir?
They have something to say.
Will you just state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Robert Kirchner. I live in Coon Rapids, and I'm part of the Anoka County Election Integrity Team. I'm interested in what your attorney's saying, and I don't know that I'm totally familiar with what he's referring to. I'm aware that there's a joint powers agreement regarding the tabulators that has a different kind of rescinding feature than the one that relates to the poll pads, at least as of data 2018. So I'm curious to know if we're talking about two different agreements here or what. So is the agreement you're referring to for 2022, you're saying that also covers poll pads, not just the tabulators?
That is what I'm saying.
So does it have a definition of the equipment involved in that? And is it a joint powers agreement, I guess is the question.
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yes, it's a joint powers agreement. It does describe what voting equipment is.
Okay. I think I understand what you're referring to now. That joint powers agreement is an update of the 2013 agreement that relates to the tabulation equipment. There's a very specific definition in both 2013 and 2022 about what that covers. And it relates to tabulation. It does not relate to the roster system. The roster system agreement is the separate 2018 agreement, in my view, and I don't believe that agreement necessarily is encompassed by the 2022 Joint Powers Agreement. That's how I read them. So our view is that the 2018 agreement is a standalone agreement and is not governed by the Joint Powers Agreement. That's just our perspective. In talking with the Tom Hunt, the Anoka County Elections Manager, he did not reference what you're describing. What he did reference is he believed that the county had some jurisdiction to mandate the use of the poll pads. And he referenced Statute 201.225, which is the enabling legislation for electronic roster authorization. And if you look at that first enabling paragraph, and you may not have that in front of you, I think we have copies of that.
I have it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I have this enabling statute.
Okay.
But I'll take a handout. I'm not trying to.
Okay.
I wasn't trying to be rude. Sorry. You always say to have a limited number. I'm happy to. Thank you.
So when we were talking with Mr. Hunt, he seemed to reference this as the county authority, not the joint powers agreement you're talking about. This enabling authority indicates that the county, municipality, or school district may use electronic rosters for any election. Then there's a line that delegates that action to the clerk. We view that as the cities having independent authority to make that decision as to whether they would decide to use poll pads or not. Now, in 2018, all the municipalities, as we understand, did make that decision to enter into this agreement with the county. And we have one of those. We're trying to get the others. We have one of those that relates to the city of Ramsey. And we were told by Mr. Hunt that all the municipalities have this agreement. Maybe you've seen that. Maybe you referenced that. I don't know. but it's 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. And there is a termination clause in there that is indicating that either party can terminate on a 7-day notice. So what I'm hearing your attorneys say is perhaps that is somehow encompassed under the joint powers agreement of 2022. Now, you may have an agreement I haven't seen. That's possible. But the joint powers agreement was a cost sharing agreement relative to the tabulators. And that agreement rolled forward. In fact, I can tell you that the joint powers agreement of 2021 or 2022, whatever that date is exactly the same agreement as in 2013, except for very specific changes. And none of those changes related to poll pads. It only really had to do with some other changes relative to some of the parties about schools and other jurisdictions. So those changes didn't change the original joint powers agreement for the electronic equipment. And in that joint powers agreement, both in 2013 and 2022, there's a very specific definition of what the equipment is that's covered in that agreement, and it's tabulation. And that definition did not change. So that joint powers agreement does not reference poll pads. That's our view. I may not have all the documents you have, but the documents we have would indicate that that's the case. So I guess I'd be interested in knowing if there's an agreement I haven't seen that does reference the poll pads more recently. It's possible, but I haven't seen it. So anyway, that's how we see it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have anything that references the poll pads specifically?
I have the agreement from 21. That was what was referred to by Tom Hunt to us. I will say, if you want to adopt this resolution, it could be that it is terminating an agreement that has already been terminated or isn't effective. You are welcome to do that. You can, and I don't know if I have suggestions or comments to it.
I'm inclined to do just that. And if the county has a problem, they will let us know that we've violated their JPA, and then they'll be able to point it out to us. Because right now, it seems very convoluted, and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. So in my opinion, and I'm one vote up here, I would say we should move forward with it.
Well, I was actually thinking the same, because I've read both of them, and if that is the case, it's not very clear.
No, it's not.
But, your thoughts, Paul?
No, I tend to agree with John.
Yep.
Just move forward for now and let them come back and.
So I'll make the motion to approve the resolution as written.
I'll
and
second.
All right, motion by Councilmember West, second by Councilmember Bray Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. And then you'll just come up with that resolution number.
Yeah, there was two versions of it in there. There's a short one.
Long.
Yeah, it's the one page, and then it's this one.
I would just suggest
There's this one.
Yeah.
The technical way would be a motion to reconsider, and then clarify that it is the long version of the two, just so that there's no questions.
So done.
Anybody who voted in favor, okay. The reconsideration of the adoption of resolution number to be inserted, to specify the long version of the resolution.
All right, everybody's good with that?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, do you have any updates for us? It's your time.
Oh, sorry, you still need to vote on that.
Oh.
The motion to reconsider is.
Okay.
So just,
All right.
do the vote.
We have a motion by Councilmember West, second by Councilmember Bray Johnson. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
I have no other updates for the council today.